Hello and welcome to the fifth part of my tutorial on audio visualization in Blender. Finally, it has been a while since I uploaded the last part and there are reasons for that, but they are pretty uninteresting for you, I think. And if you were a bit disappointed by the results and what you learned during the past parts, this will hopefully change today because you will learn a lot. And not just simple things. I think you will learn something you have to get your head around. Before we jump into Blender and work, I have made some pictures for you and we will wrap up what we have done so far and the way we have done it and how we will do it in the future. So let's get right into it. This is a picture about part 1 of the tutorial series, and it is quite simple as the result was. It was the jumping gray cube, not pretty, not very exciting, but it gave you an idea how to get audio transferred into motion in Blender. So we fed our audio file into an F-curve for the Z dimension of this cube, for the vertical scale of the cube, and that's it. Note those numbers here. This is the value range. If you import audio into an F-curve, the resulting values are usually between 0.0, this means absolute silence, and 1.0, this is 0 decibels full scale. When it starts clipping, when everything gets red and it is distorted, and so on and so on. So let's go into a picture for part 2 of our tutorial. Not pretty much changed except for the envelope modifier, if you remember. It was that way. Oh, I have to tell you something. This is a representation of one cube of 16 cubes, because our frequency analyzer had 16 cubes. I could have copied the whole thing 16 times and it would have been a mess, and it would have not made it very easy for you to understand. So think about this as 16 times 16 F-curves, 16 envelope modifiers. The difference between the first picture for the first part of the tutorial and this one for the second part of the tutorial is just this envelope modifier. You remember we had to split the frequency spectrum of the whole sound into 16 frequency bands, and the cubes were not jumping high enough. And so we artificially inflated that F-curve so it was peaking high enough using the F-curve envelope modifier. And what this did, if you did not already understand it, it took the input signal 0.0 to 1.0 and multiplied the input signal by 5.5. And this generated a signal between 0.0 and 5.5, and the cube was jumping high enough. The next picture shows what we achieved in part 4. For part 3, we created the black screen. There is no sense in making a picture about this. This part here is pretty much the same as in the previous part, because part 4 was when we added the red color. So we baked the sound again into an F-curve for the red diffuse color. And this one had not to be inflated because color values are usually between 0.0 and 1.0, so we needed no envelope modifier for it. So, and here's the problem. If you remember part 4, it has been a while, we had to import the audio for each frequency band 2 times. This means not just 16 F-curves, but 32. This is quite inefficient and it is tedious. And you have to know, in real audio visualizations, professional audio visualizations, you do not have only maybe one object and 2 properties which are influenced by audio, but maybe dozens, hundreds, or even thousands. So just imagine you have 100 properties of this cube driven by audio, so you would have to import the audio 100 times, and for a frequency analyzer 16 times 100 times. So after I think about 50 parameters, you would no longer know what you are doing there. The scene gets cluttered, and there's also another drawback, because this all takes up RAM, this all takes up CPU power. Not much, but yeah, you want to avoid this. So we have to come up with a more workflow friendly, more resource efficient solution than this one, and this is what we want to do today in the fifth part. Let me switch to the next picture. This looks somewhat familiar, but some kind of more complicated. So let's look what looks familiar here. The cube is here, it has the dimension Z, it has the diffuse color red. We have our audio file, we bake it into an F-curve, but this F-curve this time is not attached to the target object, the cube, but a proxy object. And now I have to tell you, proxy object is a term I made up because I needed a name for the baby, a name for this thing. So this is no official Blender term. It would have been a good idea to import the audio once into one F-curve and then reuse the value for the different properties of the cube. But this was not possible with the previous setup. So let me tell you what we do. We have this proxy object. I will tell you later what it is. And it has a property position Z. We could have taken any property of this proxy object, but position Z is quite, yeah, it is quite logical. You will see it later. So we feed the audio in here and into the position Z, the vertical position of this proxy object. Let's go to the cube. The cube's properties, the dimension Z and the diffuse red color, they have drivers attached to them. You will learn later what drivers are. And those drivers reference an object's property or many object properties or many properties of an object. Oh, I'm struggling already with my English. But in this case, they just reference the position Z of the proxy object. You can think about this that way. So those drivers are attached to the properties of the cube, and those drivers ask the proxy object, what's your Z position? And here we still have the values between 0.0 and 1.0. And the driver of the Z dimension has some magic in it, which multiplies the incoming data by 5.5 and creates a value range between 0.0 and 5.5, just as the F-curve envelope modifier did. And this driver just takes the input and passes it through to the diffuse red color. So this is what we want to do today. And yeah, let's jump right into Blender and then I will show you how this setup is created. Hello, and there we are in Blender. I don't know if you hear it, my voice may be some kind of different, but this is another recording session. I had to stop after recording the part with the pictures because I have a bit of a voice problem. I told you about it on Facebook and so on. So now we are here in Blender 2.73a. I downloaded it some days ago, and yeah, if my Blender looks different than yours, then it's maybe because I am using a newer version. I would not totally recommend to download this version because on my system the cycles renders took about double the time after installing it. So, okay, what we want to do is to create our proxy objects, those magical thingies which will enable us to greatly improve our workflow. For that, we go to the second Blender layer. If you don't know about layers, well, newbie, you shouldn't be here. We do this to keep the proxy objects out of our way when we work with the cubes again. So, change to layer 2. And yeah, those proxy objects, they are in no way magical or special. In fact, their special feature is that they do not need to be very, very complex. They don't need to have any fancy geometry, material or something like that. And because of that, the ideal type of object for our proxies is the empty object. So let's add one. And we take the plain axis because it just suits our needs. So as I said, those proxy objects, their speciality is that they are not very complex. They just have a position, some kind of location. Oh, I must learn this term. I always say position, but it's the same. They have a location, they have some kind of a scale, and also a rotation. What we need is really one property, and that is a Z location. We need 16 of those, and before we create them, we do that little trick we have done already in the past parts, and this is just copying the object but preparing it by adding some features and then copying those features along with those objects. This will save us a few mouse clicks and so on. So what we first want to do to this proxy object is to name it. We name it proxy 01. So why am I naming this object now? Usually I name each and every object in my Blender scenes. I name it because I like to keep my stuff in order and tidy. In the tutorial whatsoever, I do not name stuff because it will take too much time. But we need to name the proxy object because we need to reference the name later on when we are creating the drivers. We need one more thing in this proxy object. We need a Z location F curve because we want to feed the sound into an F curve for the proxy object, and for that we need an F curve. So we right click here and say insert single keyframe because we don't need a X and a Y F curve. I'm already struggling with my English again. Add insert single keyframe, preferably while we are on frame 1. And there we have our old trusted F curve. So this proxy is ready so far. We can start duplicating it. And we do it the same way as always. Press Shift D and move it to the side. Oh, I forgot to start the screencast keys as always. Never mind. So, as always, we duplicate those also and drag them over here. Now we have 4. You can also press A, duplicate. Now we have 8 proxy objects. Duplicate. Oh, just a moment. That was wrong. Select them all, duplicate, move them over here, and yes, we have 16 proxy objects. Let's select them all and move them somewhat centered. Just one more, just so it looks pretty. So now we have our 16 proxy objects, and what we now need to do is, this one here has a great name, but because we copied them, this one has no great name. So what we want to do is just to make this a bit bigger and this a bit smaller so we can better reach those proxy objects. This needs to be renamed to whatever. You just need a name you can remember afterwards. That's the 4. That's the 5. Yeah, tedious job. But I'm happy we have done it already. We have already named one. Because now 7, 8. I could fast forward this, but then other people would complain and say I didn't understand it and so on. Oops. Sometimes, okay, I forgot already which was the previous one. 9, 10. We are at 11. And 12. If it bores you, just give it. 12, okay. 12. And now for the 13th. Oh, my throat is crackling again. 13. And 14. And 15. And finally the sweet 16. So here we go. We have our proxies named. We have them all set up so far. What we need to do now is to do the same old game again. We have done I think 3 times already. Come on, how to... Sometimes I forget that I must grab this down here. We have done it already several times, I think 3 times, importing the audio. And to celebrate this special day of changing our workflow, I will use different music, a different track by my music project Wilma Poppen. And for that, to make it hearable, we open the, where is it? Video sequence editor. There we have our old audio. We delete this and say add sound and take the new one. Let's test play it. Okay, this seems to work. Let's get back to the F-curve editor or graph editor. Yeah, and here we do what we have done already 3 times, I think. We will import the audio. Previously, we fed the audio into F-curves directly for the cubes. Now we want to do this to the proxies. And I will show it to you again for the first 2 of those proxy objects and then fast forward, because you should already know what to do here. I had, by the way, to re-record this part because I forgot to go back to frame 1. Oh, this is a very, very big mistake because stuff will get out of sync. You will not get this fixed in any way. Anyway, we are importing the audio, and that we do by selecting our first proxy. Make sure we have selected the Z location F-curve, then go to key, bake sound to F-curve. Yeah, I have already the values so far. I came to there before I recognized that I was in frame, I think 700 and something, and it wouldn't work. So our first frequency band is from 0 Hz to 25 Hz, and we import the right audio. You may use as an audio whatever you want. I use this track by Wilma Poppen. It's not released yet and not mastered in any way. So okay, and this takes some time to import, as you see, because it is a 192 kilohertz wave audio in 32 bits, and this takes some time. Okay, second proxy, bake sound to F-curve, this time from 25 Hz to a whooping 40 Hz. Some kind of bass there. And it takes time. And now I will fast forward the recording, because you should know how to do where to go from now on. And I will be back once we have all our proxies set up. Yes, and there we are again. Welcome to a new recording session. Why that? Okay. After doing that and setting everything up, I had one time my recording software crashing and taking almost the whole of Windows with it. I had a blue screen, I had everything. Then the next recording session, Blender crashed, and then I was no longer up for anything, because then I was so stupid to have not saved anything, and I had to redo all that. So now it is roughly a week later. If something looks different, if I sound different, so sorry. I tried to recreate everything here in a way so we can work with it. So all of our proxy objects have now an F-curve attached to them and sound fed into it. And if I now press Alt-A, we see all our proxies are wiggling a bit. And this is not just because yeah, we are at the beginning of the song and it's the intro. Let's skip a few frames. Let's go to frame 3000 and play again. Oh, sound crackles a bit, and computer is also having a bad time keeping up with everything. Maybe it's because I have the browser open in the background, and you know, Facebook, well, it kills your computer. Anyways, now we have our proxy set up, and it wiggles a bit, and we will not add an F-curve modifier now, because as you have seen in the last picture I showed you, we will inflate the curve just for the Z dimension using some driver magic. Drivers, this is a good word. Let's create some. For this we have to move over again to the first Blender layer, and we go into top view. And I already got out of the solid or shaded view, where we are in the wireframe mode. And what we want to do here first will be a shock for you, because we will destroy most of our work. We select all but the most left cube, and we see we have all those F-curves here, and press delete and say OK. So this is rude. Why did we do this? Why did we destroy most of our work? I will tell you. If we wanted to change each cube on its own to the new behavior from the F-curve, directly F-curve driven behavior, to the driver driven layout or design, it would be a hard job. And you can try it. You can see what I do to this cube, and we will copy it again and do it to all the cubes and all the materials, and I am sure somewhere you will get lost, you will forget something, whatever. So I prefer to delete all the cubes, prepare this leftover cube with everything we need for the driver driven design, and then copy it along, and as I call it, personalize it, give it its own identity somehow. And I like the words in English. What we first want to do is to delete the existing F-curves, because we don't need them anymore and they will just be in our way. So Z dimensions F-curve, bye bye. Red diffuse color F-curve, bye bye. So what we want to do now is to look if this cube is in a resting state. So we look dimensions and the Z is 0. This is exactly what we want. Let's look into the material, and here we have yeah, this is already red. We just set this down to 0 again, so we have a nice resting position, a nice starting point. What we want to do next is get into the top view again, and we first want to take care of the Z scaling, of the Z dimension change. So we go here, Z dimension, and we right click it, and instead of saying insert single keyframe, we say add single driver. Add drivers would add drivers for the X and the Y. We only need the Z, so we say add single driver. And not much changes, just this field here got this really nice pink color, which indicates that this property is now driver driven. Where are the drivers? And now pay a lot of attention, please, because I saw people literally going crazy about this. And I saw people who already worked with Blender, already worked with drivers, and then didn't for a time and didn't know anymore where the driver settings are, because they are not very obvious to find. Down here in that title bar of our F-curve, of our graph editor, where it says F-curve, left click it and you see another option, drivers. And here we have our strange driver. I don't know what this line here means, or it should be a curve or something like that. I am even less of a driver pro than a Blender pro, so I don't know anything about this. I also do not know many of the driver properties you will see now, but I know what is necessary for us to achieve our goals. The real driver settings are over here in this properties panel or numeric panel or whatever. If it is not there, you can hide and show it pressing N. And also here's the plus sign, you can also open it here. Up here it says active F-curve. I don't know why this is a driver, but we don't need this. Close everything here until you come to the section called drivers, and here's where the magic happens. Don't worry about those buttons, they will be used in the next part of the tutorial. What we are interested in is this one here, and we want to set it to the type scripted expression if it is not already. And this means this edit field here contains an expression, a command or many commands in the scripting language of Python. Currently it just contains this floating point value 0.000, and floating point value is pretty much a valid Python expression, but you don't have to worry about this. I will show it all to you. Just let's go into some kind of a 3D view and I will show you. So this here determines the value which goes up here in the Z dimension. So if I set this manually to 1, you see we have a real cube. If I set it to 2, we have a high cube. I don't know the word right now. We can also do math inside here. We can say 2 by 5, and now it is very tall. So remember that you can do mathematics up here. But what we actually want up here, inside here, somehow, is the Z position of our first proxy object. How do we get this done? For this, we have a nifty little section down here, which is the variables. Yes, here we can create variables. There's already one created. With this here, you can add more. This is called var, V-A-R. We can name it proxy Z location, PZ log, just for fun. You don't need to do it. There's many options here, and we could do this by using a single property, but the transform channel is just what we need. So we have here to select an object, and we select our proxy 01, and then we say, here it says X location, we want the Z location. Where is it? There is it. And this all takes place in the world space. You don't have to know about that stuff. So what you see here, if this one is enabled here, show debug info, you see the value of this variable now, pzlog. And if we now go up here and say, and enter pzlog, we see that our driver value also changes to 0.003 because We are on frame 3000, and you see there something is already happening here. And this value goes directly here. And if we now skip forth and back through the frames, you see the value is wiggling, it is changing more or less. Let's get back to frame 3000. And if we did now add all the other cubes and connect them to their proxies, we would see something we have already experienced in part 2 when we created the first frequency analyzer. It's the thing with the multiplying by 5.5. We did this in the past by using an F-curve envelope modifier. Here we can just set it into our scripted expression by saying multiply by 5.5, and you see our value is instantly changing. So here the proxy, the PZ log variable has still a value of 0.003, and here up here is the driver value multiplied by 5.5, and this will make our cubes jump pretty high. What I forgot right now is to rename this cube. It has now the name cube 003. This is wrong because we just have one cube and we want our cubes names to go along with the proxies, and you will see later why it is a good idea to rename the cube 01. So now we have prepared our cube object with a Z dimensions driver. So let's get to the material, to the red color component. And now we don't have to do this, but I want to show you this because let's go over to the materials, and now select this material drop down, and you will see a lot of materials in different shades of red which have a 0 in front of them, or a circle. This means those materials are not used by any objects. We could now reuse them, but it is the same as setting up each cube on its own. It would be tedious, and and just to keep things clean and tidy, we want to get rid of those unused materials. There is no real way of doing this right here, right now, but there's a little trick, and this is why I want to show you this. And maybe also to warn you if you have any unused materials. And now see, and save your work, and then simply say open recent and reload the whole thing. Look into the materials. All the unused materials are gone. This is a good way to get rid of unused materials, but also a way to lose some work. With our leftover material, let's go to the diffuse color, open the color selector, go over the red value and press add single driver, because we don't want one for the red and the blue, for the green and blue, sorry. And we get a new driver for the red diffuse color here. This is even more easy than before. We first initialize the variable, we call it PZ log again. And we select our proxy 01 and its Z location. Yeah, and I almost forgot to put the PZ location variable up here, because this is what makes the magic work. And yes, there we are. We have set up our proxy connection for this cube, for the Z dimension and the red diffuse color. So now we are ready to copy this cube 16 times, and to see what happens then, we go into top view and do the same thing as we did before. Shift D to duplicate. Oh, I forgot to start the screencast keys again. I'm pretty sure you people can also follow my steps without seeing the screencast keys. Oh, I need some coffee, I think. I'm getting some kind of tired. So this is 8 cubes. Let's duplicate them one more time. So we are on frame 3000. This is great. So we should be able to see some action right now. I bring this over here, deselect everything and press Alt A. And maybe you know this experience already from part 2, when all cubes were jumping in the same fashion, had the same coloring. This is because they are all copies of this one cube and they are all connected to proxy 01. What we want to do first, before we really get started setting everything up, is to change the cubes' names. This one here is okay, but since we copied them, we now have strange cube names. So 2. Yes, I could fast forward this, but then people would complain. Now I must just take care that I rename them right, because if we do something wrong here, this could be pretty irritating. You will see why. This is the proxy 6, the cube 6. 7, half the way through. 8. 9. If you want me to fast forward such stuff in the future, please write it down in the comments. Your wish is my command. But I know some... I'm completely... I can't talk. Okay, this is the 10. This is the... Why is this 10? This is 9. This is 10. This is 11. So if you want me to fast forward such stuff, write it down in the comments. I listen to you. So, das war, yeah. I'm almost talking German all the time. So is this okay? Yeah, 13, 14. I really need a coffee. 14 and 15. Contrary to the names of the proxies, it is not absolutely necessary that you name those cubes, but it will help a lot when we set up stuff. Okay, now all cubes are properly named. Let's go to the first one. The first one is set up absolutely correct. And let's go to the second one. Let's first only care about the Z dimension. And yeah, now we have to scroll down here and select proxy 2 because it is cube 2. So if you ever get lost by clicking somewhere here, you know which proxy you have to select for this cube. This is very, very handy. You just have to always get the right one. And also the drivers are not always selected. So now we are at cube 4. I have to tell you, the last time I did this, I accidentally selected the cubes instead of the proxies. Yeah, and this was not quite something which brought a super result, because the driver always asked for the cube's Z position, which was always 0, and yeah, it doesn't really help. Okay, I would prefer it if those cubes, those curves were selected already. Now we are at cube 7. You see, if I talk and lose track, I just look at the cube's name and I know which proxy to assign to it, which is 8. Hello? Yeah. already thought that I did something wrong. This is cube 9, so it is proxy 9. Yeah, I could fast forward that. And this is proxy 10. And no, we don't want this one. We want this proxy 11. And as you can see, somehow here it is already working. This is proxy 12. And proxy 13. Looks a bit strange, that curve. I hope we have done everything correct and do not get a nice surprise. Yeah, folks, it is easier to misclick somewhere or do something stupid than you probably think. So this is the last proxy for this one. And let's make this a bit bigger now and press Alt A. We now have a problem, because if we go to the color, to the materials tab over here, and we see all the cubes, all the cubes share the same material. So we have the same problem we had, I think, in part 4 of this tutorial when we separated the color. And you should already know how to do this, because all of our cubes, when you see here material, you see 16 uses of this material. So we go simply ahead and click here, make this a single material, and we do this for all the cubes. Yeah, my computer is somehow not keeping up with everything currently while recording, and sometimes the objects are selected as, as if I wanted to move them. So yes, and it really stutters here. I don't know. I already closed the browser in the background because I know applications like Facebook are really taking much of the CPU power and RAM, even though I have a very good machine here. So, and the last cube can keep the original material. So we have everything set up to do the driver magic also for the material. I will try to do this real quick. I will not fast forward it, but you should already know what I have to do now. Let's go to the second cube. Select the red diffuse color. And select proxy 02 here. Next cube. Proxy 03. This is quite heavy. Why is this already set? Yeah. I know where the problem is. Because we have not selected the red diffuse color. Here it is done. Okay. So, you see, I got a little bit distracted. This is the 5. This is the 6. And you already see how it changes the color according to the Z dimension of the attached proxy. Proxy 8. Yeah, I need a coffee. Red diffuse color. Proxy 09. Come on. Hello. And it is quite irritating. If let me show you. If I click here on this cube, it looks as if everything was set already. Just if I click on the red diffuse color, it shows it is still connected to the wrong proxy. Let's correct this, and we are quite far through this. Okay. I really would like to fast forward this for you, because then I would not have to talk. Here. Oh, there's something went strange. Yeah, the computer is lagging a bit, and I don't know why. Maybe I have to set up the system someday again, because whatever Microsoft says, their Windows always gets cluttered after a time. So, okay. I think that this is it. So let's go into the 3D view up here. And let's just see. I spot a little problem here. Let me see this diffuse color. Somehow this is far. This is cube 5. And we have proxy 5. Look at this. I selected the cube instead of the proxy. This is what I meant. What can happen? So let's, yeah. Is this everything already? Just a moment. Cube 4. Now, I think we have a little problem with the cubes here too. Proxy 2, proxy 1, proxy 3, proxy 4. This looks as if it would work somehow, but I don't know. So I think we are really finished, and I am so happy about this. This was the most horrible part of this tutorial for me to prepare. I don't know if you liked it. If you liked it, please leave a like or leave a nice comment or so. Yeah, I told to a friend recently that after preparing tutorials like this one, and this part was quite heavy to prepare, I value the work of my teachers at school very, very much more, because back then I was so stupid and thought all the time, well, the teacher is standing in front of there, he learned the stuff a long time ago and it's an easy job. But to prepare for a lesson is really hard work, and yeah, I'm now 46 and I had to get this old to understand this simple thing. Anyways, I want to prepare you for the next part of this tutorial. Yes, this tutorial series will get really big. I have at least 100 parts in my head where I can show you audio visualization, different types of audio visualization. Some of you maybe already have seen my little videos I posted on Facebook, and if you saw what I have done there, well, you know what awaits you. And what awaits you in the next part? I have no fancy video I can show you right now because I didn't finish the result of part 6. So I can only tell you about it. What we will do is to have a more complex coloring. Currently we have only going from black to red. What we want to do in the next part is to achieve what some people call the reggae frequency analyzer when I showed it to them. It is basically, if the sound is quiet, it is dark green. If it is somewhere in the middle, it is yellow. And when it goes up, it is red. So you have a red, yellow, green. This is the reggae flag put upside down, but well, it is more intuitive for frequency analyzing. We will do this next part. I want to scare some of you a bit off because in the next part we will go Python programming. Maybe it is possible to get the reggae frequency analyzer done without Python programming, without writing Python scripts. But I don't care. I want to show you a bit of Python scripting. We will not have a basic tutorial on Python or so. We will do some quick work to make our reggae frequency analyzer work. So if you are not scared by now, and if you maybe said all the time, well, when does he get to the Python scripting? Well, in the next part, you will get some Python scripting. And yeah, I would be happy to welcome you there again. If you like this tutorial, please comment, please like, and see you in the next part. Bye.